What is going on, YouTube? So coming back today with my NC State football preview for 2016. So talking about a team that went 7-6 last year overall, ended up with a loss in the Belk Bowl at the end of the year to one of the teams I actually previewed yesterday, Mississippi State. Went 3-5 in the conference last year, good for 4th in the Atlantic Division of the ACC. So let's start with the first of my three key players, and we're going to start with the presumed new quarterback for NC State, and that's Jalen McClendon. Coming in as a redshirt sophomore, is the favorite to take the job from Jacoby Brissett right now. I'm not going to say that it's for sure, but I would, out of most quarterback battles, I'd say this is on the far end of the spectrum of ones that are about to be done. Jacoby Myers would be the other option. Brissett was a great dual-threat quarterback. He was a guy that you could rely on to escape the pocket or just be able to use his arm strength to find guys down the middle. And McClendon's somewhat of a similar quarterback, not as good a runner, but still has a good arm. Good size, too. He's about 6'5". So, move on to my second key player, and I've got the running back Matt Days. So, that should be the strength of NC State's offense, is at the running back spot. They've got a nice little stable of running backs led by redshirt freshman Johnny Frazier and then senior Matt Days. I'm not going to go ahead and say that Days is the best player along this offense because I actually think they got a pretty good set of wide receivers, and then Jalen Samuels is also a pretty solid tight end. But Days is going to be counted on, I think, more than anyone to be able to carry the load on this offense. So my third key player moving over to the defense is Sean Boone. So Boone should be the spark plug that the secondary needs. Secondary is somewhat experienced. They struggled last year. I think it was the weak point, at least in my opinion, it was the weak point of the defense. This is also a defense that loses their best cover corner in Justin Burris. But Sean Boone coming off, I believe, a hamstring injury. Yeah, coming off a hamstring injury, will be counted on, like I said, to be the spark plug of this defense. He'll be starting opposite Jermaine Pratt. Michael Stevens should be the best corner they have available. But again, this is a defense that's going to have to be able to be sparked by the secondary if it really wants to be a good defense at all three levels. So, get into the first of my two X factors, and I'm going to start with something I talked about a little bit earlier, and that's replacing Jacoby Brissett. Brissett was the heart and soul of NC State last year. There's no way around that. I'm not saying McClendon's going to be a bad quarterback this year, but it's hard to see an NC State quarterback living up to that billing 2 years in a row. I could see McClendon being that, maybe more, by his senior year. But again, it's going to take a little while. He's got a good set of running backs, as I mentioned, and tight ends. Thaddeus Moss comes in, I believe the nephew, something like that, of Randy Moss. Let me see if I can find that right quick. Yep. So, not to mention at the wide receiver spot, Jamichael Ramos, maybe the best wide receiver they got available. Nyheim Hines is, I think, a candidate for a breakout star for this year. Then they got Braylon Cherry starting at the other wide receiver spot. So my second X factor is the secondary. As I mentioned before, defense was pretty good last year. I believe they ranked 29th nationally. But the secondary is really going to have to step up. Jack Toko? Not 100% on that name. I think is one of the keys to this defense stepping up this year. You're talking about their other two corners in Jonathan Alston and Bryce Banks, too. Bryce Banks coming in as a true freshman. Two guys that haven't seen a whole lot of action in their careers. Obviously, Banks hasn't, but like I said, I mentioned it before with my key player, Sean Boone's going to be a big key to this defense, and there's going to have to be some spark from the safeties to be able to get these corners going. So get into my trap game for NC State, and I think it's going to be East Carolina. It's hard to find a trap game in conference for NC State because while they will be favorited in a couple of their games, I don't really see them losing to Syracuse or Wake Forest. They have to go on the road against East Carolina, a game that always proves very close, and one that's I'm not entirely sure on the season series. I used to be a huge East Carolina fan, so I do remember a lot of those games. But always close. They're always entertaining, and even though NC State will probably be a decent favorite heading into that game, it is one they're going to have to watch out for because, again, East Carolina is always a tough out for them. So my biggest game for NC State is Louisville. Again, multiple games I could have chosen from here. Florida State, Clemson being two other ones. North Carolina maybe, but they're in the other division. If NC State wants to move into the top three, again, I mentioned this a lot of the time with a team that's kind of in the middle of the pack in the division, they're going to have to beat Louisville. Louisville, a team that has high expectations, is a sleeper for the ACC coming into this year. In my opinion, they are more talented than NC State. NC State does have to go on the road this year. I do believe they lost to them last year. I believe it was close, though. Yeah, 20-13 in Raleigh. So you're going to have, I mean, if you're NC State, you're going to have to put your best foot forward. And again, that's going to, some of those bigger ACC games are going to be key if you want to be able to not just make a bowl game, but a good bowl game at that. So move into my record prediction for NC State. And I think it's going to be similar to last year. NC State kind of hovers around mediocrity pretty much every year. But I think they're going to go 6-7. I think you're looking at a 6-6 regular season with a bowl loss. Probably they normally don't fare too well in bowl games. And this is a team that's got some big games on tap this year. Potential top 25 games at the time. Obviously Notre Dame, Clemson, Louisville, Florida State. And then maybe even Miami and North Carolina. North Carolina probably will be. It's a tough schedule, there's no doubt about that. They got a lot of tough road games as well. They have to go on the road against Clemson, Louisville, and North Carolina, and East Carolina. That's going to be a tough one too. But anyway, that pretty much does it for my NC State Wolfpack football preview for 2016. I'll be coming back later today with my Utah preview. But anyway, that's pretty much it. See ya.